A very good afternoon to everyone. I'll be talking about on-label Bevacizumab. I have no disclosures. And before I start, I would like to thank Dr. Ashish Sharma sir for giving me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of this instruction course. So the drug Bevacizumab or Avastin was first FDA approved for the treatment of metastatic colorectal carcinoma. And this was at a time when the only treatment for AMD was just PDT, and ranibizumab was just in the final stages of approval. It was Dr. Phil Rosenfeld who pioneered the use of this intravenous agent as an intravitreal agent for the treatment of wet AMD. And this was in 2005. But a big problem in using this intravenous formulation was that it had to be compounded or aliquoted. So unapproved repackaged bevacizumab provided by these compounding pharmacies had the risk of contamination, inconsistent potency, and availability. Another recent problem was the expiry of Avastin's patency. So because of this, two new biosimilars were approved, and this was in the field of oncology. The first one was Bevacizumab AWWB, and the recent one was Zirabev, which is Bevacizumab BVZR. So ophthalmologists were not very keen on using a biosimilar of a drug which was not approved in the field of ophthalmology. So then came Outlook Therapeutics.
So can I interrupt you, Nikula, just for a second? Just go over the last slide. So what happened in US around 6 months or 9 months before, there was a short supply of Avastin. Because still, Avastin has a lot of belief in US system because that drug is cheaper than what we charge for Avastin in India. Around 50 to 100 US dollars. That's what the price is in United States for Avastin. So what happened? There was short supply from the company. So in between, there were two biosimilars which were approved, Zirabev and another biosimilar. So they were pushed by the insurance companies. But because Avastin has plethora of evidential data, clinical data, so it was quite, resistance was encountered from all the retina specialists. That's what she is trying to highlight. So because that's where, the clinical data, importance of clinical data comes in. Please, sorry for interruption.
So Outlook Therapeutics has come up with the drug an on-label bevacizumab, which is Litinava ONS5010. It's a full-length humanized anti-VEGF, and it is an investigational ophthalmic formulation. Basically, it will be an on-label bevacizumab approved for wet AMD if the approval happens. So the big question, is this drug a biosimilar or an originator? The drug Litinava, Bevacizumab VIKG, is not a biosimilar. It is an innovator, because for a product to be called as a biosimilar, it has to have a reference product or an originator that has been approved for that specific indication in that specific field. So Litinava was never had an originator product which was approved for wet AMD in ophthalmology. Bevacizumab was only approved in the field of oncology. So Litinava will be an innovator. And if the approval happens, it will be available. It is expected to be available both as vials and as single-use syringes. The drug at present has completed 3 clinical trials, namely NORSE-1, NORSE-2, and NORSE-3. So NORSE-1 is a clinical experience trial which happened across various centers in Australia, and this trial compares the drug ONS5010 with an alternate dosing regimen of ranibizumab. Since the dosing regimen was not similar, meaning an apple-to-apple comparison did not happen, a monthly to monthly did not happen, a monthly regimen with an alternate dosing regimen of Lucentis was compared. So this trial design was questioned. And then came NORSE-2, which was a pivotal phase 3 trial where 228 wet AMD patients at 39 clinical sites in the United States were evaluated. The trial design was a superiority trial comparing the safety and efficacy of the drug, which was dosed against the monthly ranibizumab according to the prior regimen. The primary endpoint was at 11 months, where the 15-letter gain was met. Another scenario which tells us that the drug is an originator and not a biosimilar is that for biosimilars to get FDA approval, equivalence trials are enough and a superiority trial is not needed. And moreover, the drug ONS5010 was only compared with the FDA-approved drug ranibizumab and not with the off-label bevacizumab. NORSE-3 was a safety study. There were no incidences of vasculitis, 1 case of iritis. The frequency and incidence of adverse events overall were low, and the most common adverse event was subconjunctival hemorrhage, which was attributed to the injection and not to the drug. two more trials, namely NORS-4, a trial that will evaluate the drug for BRBO, and NORS-5 and 6, which will evaluate Litinava for the treatment of DME. Another scenario which tells us that the drug is a originator and not a biosimilar, because for a biosimilar to get approval, one indication for one clinical trial is enough, and from that clinical trial, extrapolation can be done for other indications. But for a originator drug, separate clinical trials have to be conducted for separate indications, meaning extrapolation cannot be done. So the US FDA at present has accepted the Outlooks Therapeutics Biologics License application filing for review. And if the BLA is approved, it is expected to result in a 12-year market exclusivity for ONS 5010 as the first and only ophthalmic formulation of Bevacizumab approved by FDA to treat wet AMD. So what will be the deal breaker for this drug? Will it be competing with the newer biologics like Faricimab for the longer treatment interval, or will it be competing with newer ranibizumab biosimilars in terms of pricing? So in the Western countries, according to their law, it is not justifiable to compound an off-label Avastin when an FDA-approved on-label drug is available. And moreover, the pricing is in such a way that the off-label drug is priced at around $75 and the on-label Avastin, if approved, is expected to be priced at around $750 to $1,000. So this strategy is in such a way that the price is low enough to move these off-label Avastin users to the branded Litinava, but still lower than biosimilars to make sure that these physicians will prefer to choose Litinava over the biosimilars. But in India, where in a developing country where pricing rules everything, the newer ranibizumab biosimilars, 3 drugs have been approved by the Drug Controller General of India. They are very economically priced. So a lot of insights for this can be gained from the drug Lumiere, which is an ophthalmic bevacizumab approved in Argentina. So in spite of being an on-label drug, physicians and patients still preferred the off-label Avastin because of the significantly higher cost of Lumiere. So to conclude, for this drug Litinava to be a success in the Indian market, it has to be available as single-use syringes to combat the problem of compounding, and it has to be economically priced, keeping in mind the newer ranibizumab biosimilars. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikula, so very much. So, means important point to highlight is what US law implies is in case they have any on-label bevacizumab for ophthalmic use, which they never had, if that is there, then as per the law, they cannot use Avastin anymore. That's where the problem lies. Means, Alok, do you see any of the industry member, do you really see any future of that drug in India? Means, I do not see that, the kind of, biosimilar development that we have in this country. I had this specific question to you because you had one, biosimilar of Avastin in your systemic usage.
Biosimilar of Avastin came much before ranibizumab, and most of biosimilar companies do have Avastin biosimilar already active in market. The issue is not with availability in India or how it would be dispensed in India. Today, even if I look at Avastin, my price per dose of a drug is so low that I cannot go further down, and the gap because of the pricing. So typically, old time Lucentis 45,000 per vial. Avastin that time was also at similar price, but that gap has been drastically narrowed with biosimilars. And now, as the years have passed, the basic economy has come up. The need gap for reduced pricing has come down, and that's why if you see even the Outlook Therapeutics have not priced it, or in fact they are more similar to biosimilars pricing. So they are saying it will be around 40% discount to the
Biosimilar.
Lucentis
yeah.
And biosimilars are already at 40-50% discount. So that's where the gap in US will also occur. Though US is quite enthusiastic about Avastin biosimilar, India, I frankly don't see a case because the moment I go into single packing, my cost of drug basic goes.
Yeah, that's where the challenge comes. That packing.
Which I will down, and again on top of it, I have to change my basic would say, basic requirements like the small ones, excipients,
True.
which I need to add, which makes
It's a little more complicated. Thank you.